So my name is Rajav Reddy. I'm VP of Product Management. In the interest of time, I'll try to keep this short. There's only a couple of slides here. I want to talk a little about the integration we've done with our solution partners, hypervisors, etc. Before I go there, I want to quickly show you the different ways of managing the system. So obviously, we have a web UI. Was going to show a demo, but we're over. So if you guys ever want a demo, feel free. We can set it up over WebEx or whatever works for you. We also have a programmable REST API. So if you are old school, time finder kind of stuff, where you call a database, alter database, begin backup, and then you go ahead and call the CLI to go ahead and find all the LUNs that make up the database, snapshot the LUNs, and then you go ahead and call a backup script if you want to script all of that using Perl or Shell or whatever. For our part, we have a RESTful API, so you're not calling individual CLIs, but a higher level programmable API. And we have a whole doc set and everything else that's downloadable. We have a lot of customers doing that. So we have that. Obviously, we have vCenter plugins. We have both a web client as well as a desktop client, which manages both NFS data stores as well as VMFS data stores, both with iSCSI and Fiber Channel. Coming soon, we have Microsoft SCVMM support. So it's going to be for both Block as well as Hyper-V. So since we'll be supporting SMB 3.0, you have Hyper-V support, SCVMM supporting both Block and Hyper-V. We also have proactive call home alerts, but that's standard with a lot of storage arrays. And we already talked about analytics within the array as well as the IntelliCare cloud-based analytics. So I'll skip through that. So this actually concludes essentially all the layers. Rajesh touched on all of these layers and this one as well. I quickly went through that layer. I wanted to sort of give it just about 5 seconds so you guys can digest everything you've heard from Rajesh, put this in context, because we started out with this framework, and we want to make sure that we basically show you this framework towards the end so you know everything we're doing within the system, what is visible outside of the system. So it just gives you the whole stack on the software side. From the integration partners, the big two, obviously, we have VMware, we have VAI block integration, we have VAI file integration, fast file clones, as well as full file clones. vCenter plugin I already talked about, all the certifications you would expect. We also have Horizon View 6.0 certification done and published on VMware's website. We have joint reference architectures. We're working on more. We also have native SMB 3.0 integration that we announced. SCVMM integration I already talked about. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Fast Track program that Microsoft has. So we have a SQL Fast Track data warehouse, and we are listed on Microsoft's website for that. We are constantly on the treadmill of Windows and SQL Server certifications, as well as ESX and Horizon View certifications. In addition to these, I'll give you a second to take the picture. Okay, cool. All right. We also have relationships with all of these vendors. And basically, mostly what we end up doing is certifications, API-based integrations in the field. With customers, we have joint solutions and joint reference architectures with a lot of these vendors. And we are building more partnerships as we go forward. As you know, if you're a storage vendor, you have to have a very strong ecosystem. Yes, Enrico?
So Vim and Commvault, they have this functionality of
Snap integration. Yeah. So what we are seeing right now, for the most part, and we are partners with them. So we are queued up to actually have. You're probably talking about IntelliSnap integration with Commvault, and Veeam is beginning to do something very similar. So where we are right now is we're using API-based integration since we have an open API. We're also queued up to work with them. So are a lot of other storage vendors, as you probably know. So we are in the process of getting those integrated into the UI as well. Is that your question? Cool. So that's pretty much all I had. We were going to do a demo, but like I said, we're going to sort of put that off if anybody wants it.
Are you applying a Cinder?
Yes, we are. We are looking to do a Cinder plugin as well. We just want to time it right. So like we said, right, we're focused right now on virtual server, virtual desktop, and databases. And we are slowly expanding the other use cases that we want to address. And yeah, Cinder is definitely in the list. Yeah. Any other questions? You want to?
No, I mean, I was just going to ask, three of us here, if there are any questions that you haven't answered, we'd be happy to, take a shot at it.
Do you have VASA or VADP support for VMware?
Yes, we do. So we've actually invested quite a bit as far as VMware integrations go, right? In fact, given that 50 to 60% of our business is server virtualization, and about 20% is VDI, right, desktop virtualization, we've actually invested quite a bit in the VMware ecosystem. Right? And to the earlier discussion about vVols, right? There's work already going on, right? It's more a question of the timeframes, next year. So we would like to be as close to VMware's launch, right? So the goal is to be concurrent. We'll probably be a month or a month and a half behind just to make sure that we've tested it at scale.
You talked about a scale-out architecture coming in the future. Does that mean, so will it be the same product, a separate product, like separate code stream? Will you kill off the dual controller architecture?
Absolutely not. So let's step back for a moment, right? And you asked the question, it's a good question. If you look at the mid-range enterprise market, right? Broadly speaking, why do people try to do scale out? It's usually aggregate performance to a logical entity, right? It's usually you aggregate a bunch of capacity. Back then it used to be spinning disks to achieve the goal of high performance. That's number one. And also simplicity of scaling, right? I.e., I want to add a brick, and scale, right? If you look at the aggregate performance required to a logical entity, and a logical entity could mean a LUN or a file system or even a file, right? In the mid-range of the market, when you're offering, 300 to 400,000 IOPS today, possibly going to 2 million by end of next year, the question is, which set of applications require massive scale out in the context of flash, right? That comes down to a fairly small number, right? Now, that said, what customers want is the ability to start small and then add and grow, right? So I'm circuitously answering a question that will we jettison our dual controller architecture? No, right? Will we enable addition to an existing installation, right? Beyond the two controller architecture, the answer is yes.
So if I've got a dual controller architecture system from you today, I'd then be able to scale that out.
That's certainly the intent. If you're going to hold a gun to my head and says version 2.5 was then, when version 4 comes out, I want to make sure that version 2.5 works with version 4. Probably not. But the intent is the architectural underpinnings are already there. In fact, part of what Rajesh said,
it will require a software upgrade, but it's going to be a software upgrade.
Are you going to do an extreme IO on us?
No,
Absolutely not.
we are non-disruptively upgradable in every way, shape, or form you can think of, right? So
We have been non-disruptively upgraded for over 2 years now.
Who does the upgrades? Is it the customer, or can you hit a button and have support do it?
Either way, we've had people do it themselves, right? Or we've got sort of remote deployments wherein you've got the latest version of the operating system. You basically snapshotted the image itself, right? In the event that if for whatever reason the upgrade doesn't go smoothly, you can revert back to it. All of that is automated, so that you can let the customer do it, or you can do it remotely. The only challenge is when you're doing it remotely, after you've done the upgrade, you got to reinitiate a connection.
No, I mean, can I hit a button and have support do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
No doubt.
So we do offer both. It is a web-based upgrade where it goes to a upgrade cloud in this, upgrade server in the cloud and tracks down the latest set of code. What we found from our IntelliCare stats is that more and more people have been doing it themselves. They prefer to do it themselves. Some of the larger customers are the ones who tend to involve support in it.
Just curiosity, so you changed a lot of the ZFS layer, and so caching part, so you don't use Zeal anymore. They are changing. They do the caching part probably.
So yes, we do change a lot of portions of ZFS. Some of them might still be called the same thing, but underlying they're very different. For example, caching wise, yes, we still have a level 1 cache, level 2 cache, but it looks very, very different from what ZFS has.
So, and Berkeley is still open Solaris, or?
It is still open Solaris, yes.
I mean, one way to think about this is at a very conceptual level. What we've done is we've taken the lower layers of it and fundamentally done a massive, completely, change and optimization that has to do with persistence, different persistence layers. Number one, right? Then, of course, the discussion about separation of metadata, user data. Dedupe algorithms have been completely or the implementation is completely written from scratch, and optimizations in terms of compressing data sets compressing metadata sets in memory, right? In your cache layer, in this hierarchy, all of that is done. The going back to your earlier point about flash, scale out, right? One of the underpinnings of the architecture is where I can scale out. The architecture allows us to scale out different tiers separately, right? So part of the innovation about separating metadata and user data was exactly to do that, right? Now, the next step in this is handling the interconnects, right? So that I go beyond the two controller architecture to facilitate scale up. So the short answer is next year. Now, somebody asked me, is it between 62 and 75 days? I won't answer that.
So does that mean that we will see Tegile back next year to update Storage Field Day on these important announcements and advancements?
Absolutely, and
I got to set you up, man.
We'll be, this has certainly been our first, occasion. Very happy with it. Certainly, good tweets will always help, right? But yes, we certainly use. We see this as a great venue for, sharing information about the company, what we're doing, and so that interested parties and prospects, customers can get a good sense of what we're up to and the impact that we can have on them.